for some of you, I hope that it's a bad morning. But I hope that you have blood coming out of your eyeballs and out of your mouth as you're subatomically destroyed and humiliated and ashamed and brought low on a subatomic level while I have over your fucking grave. Because I don't like you. I like to do curses against you every day of my life. You know, I really do. I listen to tapes, little like positive tapes that what they do is they I listen to meditations for the destruction of my enemies every day because I want my enemies to be destroyed. I know. The sociologist in me is scientifically looks at it, but the other part, some people like to just hope the worst for you. So what was I talking to myself about this morning? I was talking to myself about, today's the 18th. I was discussing myself. The very real possibility is that let me back up. Everybody's like, what are you even talking about? You don't even know. I know, I'm just putting it out here so that I know that I've done it and I've vented. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What's the date? Is it the 18th? Okay. So the Pareto effect. The Pareto effect is an 80 to 20% operational principle on Earth, where 80% of community species on Earth are producers, and 20% are scroungers or AKA usurpers. Now, the trick about the usurpers is that even lions have 20% usurpers. Spiders have 20% usurpers. Humans, according to CIA book author Andrew Bustamante, are taught to look in the CIA. First thing that they're taught is to look for the 1 out of 5 usurper, scrounger, Pareto class that is born that way, stays that way their whole life. You go read CIA book author Andrew Bustamante if you don't believe me. So when we talk about a usurper, what does the Bible say Jacob's name meant? Usurper. And we always act like it's like a great thing. We don't really think about what it means, I think, much. People just, some pastors will talk about it a little bit. And they'll talk about how Jacob was sneaky, how he was a cheat, how his father-in-law Laban was to give him the sensation of what it was like to really be trained by a cheat so that he could take his to the next level. And that's exactly what he did. When Rachel was pregnant with Benjamin, remember he had 4 wives. 2 of them were servants of his wives, and they were slaves, and they never got the status of wife, but they produced children of Israel, supposedly, even though they were never given the status of wives. We never talk about them. We never discuss them. It's as if they were non-beings, really. Let's discuss that right now, since we're busy on a topic. Jacob actually had, Jacob in the Bible, the one you was supposed to be renamed Israel, but never was. He had 4 wives, okay? So he had a wife, Rachel. He had a wife, Leah. They were, some people say, twins. He was supposed to marry Rachel first, but he got tricked into marrying Leah first. There's a whole story behind that. It's because Leah had been arranged to marry his brother Esau from birth, and he had been arranged to marry Rachel from birth, according to the backstory. So that meant that, like, when Jacob married Leah first, he actually was stealing Esau's wife. Okay. Then he was keeping his own wife. So he stole his twin brother's wife and then kept his wife. Now, this is a story where in the Bible, in the story of Cain and Abel, there's a story where both Cain and Abel were born with a twin sister. And back in those days, people were having sex with their sisters. Everybody ever talks about this in the book of Genesis, like who were Adam and Eve's kids having sex with? Oh, incest wasn't illegal yet. Why? It didn't become illegal until years later. And the reason why is because people didn't have enough deleterious mutations on their DNA to load the DNA to where like toxic's not the word that they would choose, but where combinations of genetics are built up with a DNA load that could be not compatible for a healthy long life. Okay, so that didn't happen until humans got deeper into what we call supposed sin. Okay, now just remember, we call Christmas, on Hell of a Boss, they call it Sinsmas. Sinsmas. What is Sinsmas? Well, sin is called survival at any cost. From an evolutionary standpoint, the cause of our wickedness as a planet is because we are all about survival at any cost. SAC, if you want to give it an acronym, survival at any cost. SAC. I know we call it sin, but it's really SAC. The cause of all sin in this world, as we know it, is survival at any cost. Let me give you a great example. When they studied the babies in the Yale baby study, they found out exactly what nature found out when they put collars on lions, and they found out that 20% of lions are scroungers. And when they studied spiders, and they found out that 20% of spiders are scrounger usurpers. And when they did the Yale baby study, and they found that 20% of human babies without any abuse are scrounger usurper class and prefer bullies in a puppet show. I'm not making this up. And those babies were smart enough to know that they only wanted other bullies bullied. Did you know that? Go watch it's on 60 Minutes. It's called Do Babies Unlock the Secret of Morality? Karen Wynn, Yale Baby Show, Andrew Bustamante, CIA book author, The Tipping Point of Society study that was conducted by the Navy, and of course Stanley Milgram, concur and fall together on one point, and that is that then there's a Pareto effect, which means that 20% of people, 20% of animals, 20% of everything is made to do something. Instead of, we think of interspecies evolution and competition, but intraspecies evolution and competition is driven by internal factors, which means that 20% of your population of humans has an anterior cingulate cortex that causes them not to feel corresponding suffering when you suffer, but instead to get, if they manage to trick you with an image that they created, a beneficial hit of dopamine and a dopamine transfer instead. And by such way, supposedly interspecies evolution and survival of the fittest continues. Now, a lot of people say, hey, do the narcissists hit a hotline? I don't even know if narcissism is a disorder. When I started to research the Pareto effect, I started to think that narcissism is a subset of the actual, it's just a group of people that are born that way. They're in dogs, have 20% of them, humans have 20% of them, and the CIA trains people to look for them. And so what does that mean? According to Andrew Bustamante, what does that mean? That means that 80% of people are pretty much good, okay? They like good stuff most of the time, what we would call helper type behavior, pro-social behavior. But that when you see that the very, very richest people are trafficking others and doing this, that. So David Graeber wrote a book called Debt, the First 5,000 Years, in which he explains that money is not something that we just developed as a tool and barter trade, but in reality, money was actually created in order to support slaves in a standing military industrial army. And that really, if you don't have slaves in a standing military industrial army, you actually don't need money. So trafficking is slaves, okay? And then you need a standing army. So money is, the two things that come from money are standing armies and slaves. So when people act like money's really great, provision's awesome. I'm not saying money can't be a part of provision, but if you're fixated on it as a concept, then you're fixated on slaves. And so what is the usurper exploiter class fixated on? Oh, they're fixated on slaves. So let's go back to Adam and Eve. So then it wasn't inbreeding back in those days, and Cain and Abel each were born with a twin sister. And Cain wanted to take the twin sister of Abel, and he wanted to have his wife and Abel's wife, so he killed his brother to get it. So when we look at Jacob, when he stole the birthright, because Esau had the birthright, the way that Esau got the birthright was by marrying Leah. He was going to get the land and the title and the different things that came from being married to Leah, his cousin. And so part of the birthright was marrying Leah. So when Jacob stole Leah, that was part of his stealing the birthright that a lot of people overlook if they don't know the history or the culture of the people at the time. Part of stealing the birthright of Esau meant he had to steal Esau's bride and have children with her, just like Cain stole the bride of Abel. So Jacob was a type of Cain, because Cain kills his brother to steal the wife. But in this case, Jacob, Esau, if he had his hands on him, I'm sure he would have if he could have gotten away with it. But the reality of the situation is what he did to Esau was so much worse. And so, and we're told the story from the usurper's angle, because the usurpers wrote the history books and wrote the religious books. I'm not saying all the religious figures in them were usurpers, but the people who wrote the books about them were. So then that means that you're hearing it from the perspective of like, isn't this a good thing that Jacob married Leah? Isn't this a good thing that that he had two wives and that he took on that he took his wives' slaves, because his wives had slaves, and he turned his wives' slaves into second wives. Because like, say Leah wanted to get pregnant and she couldn't get pregnant, she'd be like, hey, go sleep with my handmaid and get her pregnant. Go get Zilpah pregnant or whatever. So that borderline sounds like coercive control and rape that both Leah and Rachel were involved in. So this family, so first of all, when we think of the children of Israel, we think of them all as being Leah and Rachel's kids. When you think of them as being Leah and Rachel's kids, you're thinking of them as being Leah and Rachel's kids, when in fact about half of them came from slave women. So half the children of Israel came from slave women who are never mentioned in the Bible. We never talk about them. We don't know shit about them. Supposedly their story doesn't matter. But supposedly the kids mattered just because they belonged to Jacob. Except for we know one thing. We know that mitochondria is passed through the egg, and that when men have mitochondria, it's in the tail of the sperm and it falls off, which means those children couldn't be Israelites unless their mothers were already. So then you treated them like shit, didn't you? Half the children of Israel come from mothers who were just slaves, according to that story. One of them from a stolen bride. So yeah, Jacob's a usurper. He's part of the scrounger class, part of the 20% Pareto effect. And his daughter was supposed to be the Messiah and was going to be a son, the seventh son of Leah, supposedly, according to the Jews, and usher everybody into a messianic age. But what happened is that Jacob got jealous because he's a usurper, and he saw Joseph and Benjamin as his ticket through Rachel. And so to continue a system of exploitation, so he destroyed his own child through Leah. In every way that he could, using Joseph to do it, because Joseph is also a usurper, taking the throne from someone else, taking someone else's meat, taking someone else's kill. So Joseph is a vizier in Egypt, so he took advantage just like his daddy. And then we're supposed to think that, Jesus is a type of Joseph. And then it's like, oh, Jesus came as a lamb and he's returning as a lion. Ooh, ooh. Oh, look, it's Messiah ben Yosef, then Messiah ben David. Oh, it'll be better when Ben David's here. Really? It'll be better when Ben David's here? Let's look at first of all, let's look at Jesus. There's Christianity done. It's turned the world into a huge communist thing where they try to take your soul and give you a false life instead and engraft you, as Jeffrey Doherty said, into a big Frankenstein body of mechanical solidarity. I'm going to have to agree with him on that. There's no benefit to it unless you already are they say that if you're neurotypical that you get benefits from being in church. But what I think it is, but neurodivergents don't usually. So it gets a little tricky, doesn't it? So then churches are, according to science, the stuff I've been reading, suggests to me a posited idea that churches are there as towers of strength for the neurotypicals to make sure that neurotypicals always have a hold on society using the usurper class, and that neurodivergence never managed to usurp both of them, which is really what you're going to have to do. Back to Jake and his 4 wives, 2 of which were slaves that we never hear anything about. We're just supposed to think it's super normal. One of the things that Jacob did is he was a murderer. So when Jews want to make a golem, okay, one of the things they do to make a human into a golem is they kill the mother. Go read that. I'm not saying that they do it. I'm saying go look it up on ChatGPT. If you don't believe me, go look on your ChatGPT. Jews say that if a human wants to make, it's in the rabbis, if you want to make a human being into a golem, a person who just does your will, I'll bet you that Jeffrey Doherty would say the Christian church is sort of a golem. It doesn't think for itself. Do you know that any single individual is smarter than a crowd or a mob at any time? So any individual ever, scientifically, is always smarter and has more thinking ability than a mob at any given time. So that means that your Frankenstein body has a lot of movement. Okay, your Bride of Christ, your little Frankenstein, your little mechanical solidarity torture movement for neurotypicals to hurt neurodivergence and make it look like they're holy and special while they do it, is, of course, a crackpot plan of the fucking usurpers. But let's just think about it for a minute. Don't you just hate church? It's the place where all the bad reindeer go, and reindeer are pretty much bad. There's an entire show on reindeer that narcissists are reindeer. No, there really is a movie, a documentary on narcissists, and it's called Reindeer. And I get a kick out of it because, to me, when I think of the claymation movie, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, I really do think that the reindeer are a lot like narcissists. And do you remember how the coaches of the reindeer were and how mean they were to Rudolph? They were like the ultimate coaching bullies, right? That is what Christian pastors are like. They are the pastors of reindeer. They are there for the reindeer, and the other people happen to be there, but they're there for the reindeer, and to keep the reindeer going. And how do coaches of reindeer in the claymation movie? They insult, they encourage them to bully, they make them into better bullies. In fact, how do the reindeer get up in the sky? By bullying, by taking preferential dopamine hits from other people. They get high off of bullying other people and getting a preferential dopamine hit because they have an anterior cingulate cortex that works differently, that allows them to fly, supposedly, because of the dopamine. Think about it. Narcissists get high on bullying. They get a dopamine transfer. So, okay, so Rudolph, okay, is a reindeer, but he's also got a red nose. So he's like a hybrid, right? And because he's got these feelings, which is the red nose, the coaches are like, yeah, you're a reindeer, and if you could cover up that red nose, we'd train you. But like, we noticed there's something a little different about you. And so, like, unless you're willing to cover it up to make us feel comfortable, you're going to have to go. Well, what happens to neurodivergence in church? They either stay till they get bullied, they have to cover up what's going on with them, or they have to go. Now, that being said, ew. on. You don't want to know what just happened. No, I had a single thing of snot come out of my nose. And now I need tissue. My nose wasn't even runny, and I had one blob, like a single slug worth of snot roll out. It's gross. It's a little bit gross. And then I did the worst of the worst because I have no tissue on my top bunk. I shoved it into my mouth. I was getting ready to vomit. And it goes out. I have to go find something to spit in. I like to put boogers in my mouth for a few minutes. I'll tell you why. Because a booger has an immune reaction to a person or an idea that you were exposed to. And if you eat it, you up your immune system and you lower your chances of getting sick from the very same kind of stuff. And you increase your ability to have memories about it, in my opinion. Also, they're making bubble gum out of booger stuff, synthetic boogers, because it will save your teeth. That's what they're saying, that it can help you regrow the enamel on your teeth. Anyways, back to, isn't that great science? Boogers. That was really gross. I literally was like saying that thing and I leaned forward and I felt this like heavy, like singular slug of mucus, like a snot kind of just roll out my right nostril and just right out. Anyways, so it's clear now. It's weird. You know what? I got a little water in the back of my nose and a while back, and I feel like maybe just kind of, I don't know what happened. It's more interesting than the story I was talking about. Just kidding. Maybe it is. Okay, so the churches are here for the neurotypicals. And what else? There's more. I'm not done yet. Let's see. Oh, in sociology class, they teach you a sciencey thing, a truthful sciencey thing that can be proven over and over again. And that is that the doctrine of every church always supports the kingpin of the economy in that area. So say you take this book. Supposedly it's been saying the same thing for a long time, right? Then why was it that certain people read it and they found all doctrines that supported slavery? And other people read it and they found all doctrines that supported capitalism. And other people read it and they found all doctrines that just supported evangelism and living in a sort of spiritual life. Well, why is that? And they made different churches. Eastern Orthodox. Do you know the Eastern Orthodox Church is the oldest Christian church on earth? And I think the Coptics might be up there, but the Eastern Orthodox split from the Christian church really early on. And do you know that until 1100 AD, to this day, the Eastern Orthodox and half the Christian world and all Christians till 1100 AD did not believe in the propitiation of Jesus. They did believe there was some kind of death, but they never believed that he paid for your sins. Just think about that for a minute. None of the first 100 years of Christians believed that Jesus paid for 1 ounce of your sins. The doctrine of the propitiation cross, where he died instead of you and for you, did not exist. Go to ChatGPT, please, and look it up. Did not exist until 1100 AD. And half the church world still doesn't believe it. It came as a shock to me, too. My brother converted to Eastern Orthodox, and I was like, how could you be a Christian? The propitiation is so wrong. And he said, Eastern Orthodox have always known that propitiation was wrong. His belief is that Jesus came and died to show a way of life and to pass a message by example. That's how he looks at it, okay? Now, is that exactly how I look at it? I'm not saying that's how. I think that he provided an example for a certain set of people. the scroungers. But as far as like the propitiation, no, I don't believe in the propitiation. But I find it extremely fascinating that most of the Christian world is, half of the Christian world at least, is obsessed with the propitiation. But because we live in America, we're almost exclusively exposed to propitiation believers. Propitiation believers means that the people who believe in the propitiation believe that Jesus basically, like, in your place died for you, and that this paid the debt of your crimes and made you just white as snow. Except no Christians believed in the propitiation until 1100 AD. It didn't become a doctrine. And except for half the Christian world doesn't even believe it right now. Eastern Orthodox don't even believe in the propitiation, and they hail back further than the Protestant church does. So are you telling me that the first 1100 years of Christians who did not believe in a propitiation all went to hell? What about the half of the Christian world that doesn't believe it right now? Where does your doctrine end and start and accept people in salvation? Are they saved? Does belief in propitiation save you? Because if you believe it's the belief in the propitiation of Jesus that saves you, then the first 1100 years of Christians, and half of them on the world right now, have never been saved by your Jesus. And you are just the exclusive recipients of this special knowledge, aren't you? How convenient. Gang stalking. Gang stalking is a real thing. And guess what? In order to be gang stalked, you do not need anybody to go on the dark web and talk to each other. You don't need that. I'm not saying that some people don't do that sometimes, but I just have to tell you that it's absolutely unnecessary. Absolutely unnecessary. In fact, there is an enemy meditation I listen to every morning. Sometimes I listen to it 3 times a day. I don't really pray, but sometimes I will listen to my enemy meditation 3 times a day. And you know what I say in there? Just what I said to you now. Do you know if there's no propitiation, what kind of trouble you people are in? Half the Christian world. Now, wait, I'm just going to talk like a Christian for a minute to scare you, just because it's fun. Do you know that you propitiation believers are full of trouble right now? Why? Because Jesus is the mascot of the scroungers. He's the mascot of stealing kingship by abuse. He's the mascot of the neurotypicals, triumphing over the neurodivergents as long as possible. He's the standard of segregation. When we look at Jesus in Egypt, we see Joseph as a type of Jesus. And what does he do in Egypt? He becomes vizier of Egypt, and he turns the land of Egypt into a communist country. He takes away their land rights and their body rights and turns them into just a nation of slaves. That's your Jesus. He wants a nation of slaves. And he wants usurpers to usurp. The parable of the sower in the ground, when he says that only a quarter of the seed falls on good ground, according to the Yale Baby Study, it's only approximately a quarter of the message of usurping can only fall on a quarter of the people with any production ever. Approximately. So he wasn't talking about the good seed and the good ground. He wasn't referring to good people and good understanding. He was referring to those people who were of the 20% Pareto class who could understand the predatory message that he was leaving, because he's a usurper. And so then let's see if it's Messiah ben Yosef and Messiah ben David, then what kind of hero are we looking for? Well, let's look at Jesus, first of all. Was he a hero or was he an anti-hero? I would say he's an anti-hero. Now, some people would say that that the guy who like died and tried to give people an example of how to live their life, that he was not quite so bad, but that this other Jesus that they made up, controlling and commodifying the religion, was what went south. But I don't know, and I don't really care. I don't even care anymore. We just use it as a type. It's a lot easier. So Joseph is a type of a guy who was trained by his father to attack his sister, who was the real inheritor to the throne, and to become a slave class, a military standing army, coinage operating, David Graeber type dictator of a communist country. And so Joseph is basically, if I asked you, if I changed Joseph's name from Joseph and Jesus and I called him Trump and I said, hey, is it okay if Donald Trump comes and takes all your property and takes all your children and takes your rights to your body and turns America into a land of slaves for generations to come? And just a big communist, you got no rights. How would you guys feel about that? Oh, you'd call him the Antichrist. But why wouldn't you call him the Christ? Isn't that the Jesus? Maybe the Antichrist is one who doesn't like that. So, first messianic hero in the Bible is a messianic fraud and a villain. He's not a hero. He's a fucking villain. He molested his sister at his father's behest. And let's get into his birth. Rachel and her 2 kids. Boy, did Jacob want a golem, didn't he? He wanted a golem. And the Jews say you make a golem by killing the mother when the baby's born and getting rid of the father. So if there's no father around and you kill the mom. So let's think about it. So Jacob is not really a dad to start with. He's a usurper, which means that 20% usurpers, they don't really dad. They mentor other usurpers to an extent, but they don't really dad. So Rachel's pregnant, and according to the midwifery rules from back then, when little Benjamin got stuck in her uterus, the midwife rules, go look it up on Chat GPT, where the midwife was to chop the baby in pieces and deliver the baby in pieces to preserve the mother's life. But if you read the Bible story, it says that Benjamin emerged from the side wall of his mother's uterus. The story is that Jacob actually went and murdered his wife, his supposed favorite wife that was the only one he loved, Rachel. And instead of trying to save her life, in order to get himself a precious little heir, and to get a golem for himself, he cut open his wife and killed his wife. And that's why she cried out, "Son of my sorrow." The tribe of Benjamin's been nothing but problems. Let's take another look. Esther, if she had never been born, then the adjuncting wizarding community in Babylon would have never been able to pull off a tryst. That was exactly the same thing that Achan did in Jericho, and somehow managed to find a way to get around it. I don't think they ever did. I think Joshua was going to show up and have him stoned to death one day for that. Happy is the man who dashes open the Babylonian infants. Once you've been living in there under a Babylonian system and you gave Esther up to the king, you became adjuncting Babylonian wizards. Let's talk about that. So, why was Saul uniquely chosen to be king of Israel? Because he probably was a golem, just like Esther. And that's a thing in the Bible, is that the tribe of Benjamin, because Esther's from the tribe of Benjamin too, because the entire tribe of Benjamin, their mother was killed by Jacob to turn them into a golem for Jacob's favor, to do whatever Jacob wanted. They have no free will. So like if you look up, the rabbis will say that Esther was neutral ground, because she was, Mordecai took her because her mom died in childbirth, supposedly, but reality was Mordecai was standing by, just like Jacob was with Rachel, and cut Esther out of her mother's stomach to create a golem. And then he raised her, turning her into an infant bride from the moment go, so she had no will or agency of her own, even according to the Bible. Anything Esther does isn't even a sin because she has no free will. Well, let's look at King Saul. He's also Benjaminite, also prone to see. They say that Esther, whichever person would look at her, she would turn into the person looking like a person from that country that they were from. Basically, one of the stories is that if your mom is killed for you to be born, your mom never passes on her soul to you, so you are born without a soul. And so all different souls pass through you, but you don't have one of your own. And so the entire tribe of Benjamin is essentially passed on without a soul, so that they could be a golem for their father. And so you have Esther changing into having multiple personalities, the ultimate MK Ultra, switching personas for each person she meets in the ultimate act of diplomacy to keep the adjuncting wizarding community in Babylon safe. And as their little token. So like some countries fight over Helen of Troy, but others just give her up as a prostitute and watch her be humiliated for joy. There's your Babylonian fucking sect. Anyways, and they're all Joseph worshipers. Did I mention that to you? Joseph, I'm not the only one. There are rabbis who say that Christianity is Joseph's dream of the stars and everybody bowing down to him. You know how in the dream where Joseph has a dream where his mothers and his brothers and everybody are bowing down to him? So a lot of rabbis will say that Christianity is Joseph's dream come to pass. But a lot of rabbis, or a function of them, say that the 11 Sefirot, 10 to 11 Sefirot system that is used in Kabbalah is because the number of Joseph is 10 and 11, and there's several other reasons why. It mirrors Joseph's dream, that the Kabbalah system that the Jews are using is also a Joseph-based system. Do you know what that means? That means that all the Kabbalah practicing Jews are also Christians. They're all Christians. And they're operating as visors in Egypt. So that's even more evidence. So when they call the Joseph in the 10 northern tribes, the 10 lost tribes, they're calling themselves lost because they're standing right there. And so then what you're saying is they're lost because you're lost if you're teaching Jesus. So, but then who's the next hero that's supposed to show up? Who's supposed to supplant Jesus, and he's supposed to come back as this other guy who's going to be better, right? King David. Messiah ben David. This will be an improvement over Messiah ben Yosef, who's just a slave-holding fucking piece of shit. Oh, it'll be so much better when we get Messiah ben David, because he'll just save the day. Really? Well, let's think about David. Let's look at his archetype and how you'd be treated under him. David was okay when he was in the wilderness. Okay, when he was in the wilderness, he was all right. But just like the book Army of Enablers says, and science, once you move into the city and you're given leadership position, it turns out that your brain prunes the neurosynapses necessary for empathy for your fellow man. So the minute you get into power, you have dropped your ability to have empathy by taking the power. So when did David drop the noon, the letter noon, the ethical, the chapter of ethics? When did he do that? When he became the king. Because when you're a king and you're in leadership, your brain prunes empathy. So now you've got this leader who is a wild man running the wilderness, something that you might enjoy even, someone I might even like. But then you bring him in the city and he changes into a whole other person. And, you know, when he was in the wilderness, he could kill a giant, but in the city, it took all of his men. He didn't have his spiritual strength anymore. But what did he do to get Bathsheba? He shot down a wall. She was a 7-year-old bride. And so David was a fucking pedophile. King David in the Bible, according to the rabbis, when he spotted Bathsheba bathing on her rooftop and then forced her to have sex with him, she was a 7-year-old girl. So a king with no empathy, who's taking advantage of children, is supposedly the new Messiah we're waiting for? And that's supposed to make us feel good? This guy's a flop, man. He goes on and on about his kids. Solomon's a fucking spoiled ass piece of shit who runs temple prostitutes to foreign gods and tortures babies and sends children through the fire. And you're like writing psalms about make your son fucking Solomon king forever, you sick fuck. You sick fuck. You're worse than Joseph. You're no better. You're a sold out fucking puppet for this fucking stooge class. Like, what the fuck, you dumb fuck? Are you even a real... Come on now, man. Come on now. Oh, and what, you're going to take care of the golem. The golem. Oh, Joseph takes care of the golem, Benjamin. Then later, it's David. But according to law, Benjamin should have been put to death because his mother was killed to bring him about. He should have been sacrificed. And when Benjamin attacked people traveling through the city of Benjamin, and you went and attacked Benjamin, and you brought them down to 300 men, you should have killed them all off instead of giving them brides. And if you were going to give them brides, you shouldn't have given them other people brides. You should have given up your wives that you were already married to and your daughters that you already had promised. And if you didn't do that, then you might as well have sentenced yourself to death. Oh, God didn't direct you, you little fucks. He only makes pedestals to knock out. Now, gang stalking. Is it a real thing? Yes. Let me tell you something. If you go and you watch any of these women who have videos on narcissism up on their YouTube channels, you're going to find that they all get baffled. They're like, I don't know what's going on here, but it looks like the narcissists are going to narcissist school. Where do they get the time? Do they leave in the middle of the night and spiritually fly away to a school where they learn all the same techniques and they learn how to work together on everything without even talking? Yes, because they're like a symbiotic nation of their own. They defend their own. The 20% usurper Pareto class is their own nation, and you're never going to be a part of it. You're never going to be a part of it. If you were not born as one of them, they will use you, but you will never be a part of it. Just so you know, just so your feelings are hurt. You will never be a part of it because they know the difference. The sharks are always circling. Whether you look like a victim or you don't look like a victim, the shark can still tell that you're a shark or that you're not a shark. They're still circling. And what they're waiting for is not a victim. They're waiting for an opportunity. If you're not a shark, it's just what kind of opportunity. So when a person gets an infection with narcissistic introjects, one of the 80% of humanity that's pretty much pro-social, they'll think that they're on the narcissist side. Oh, the narcissists like me now. Now I'm safe. No, you're not. You're just getting fatted up for the slaughter. They're just using you. And when they can't use you anymore, they'll dispose of you. Because they don't have an anterior cingulate cortex that would allow them to feel any pain over it. And they'll get a beneficial dopamine hit. They're not ran by shame or guilt. Unless it's like over their image. Meaning that they value their image over their authentic self. If you value your image over your authentic self. Okay, so Professor Sam Watkins says that the narcissist has a right to left hemispheric block. A normal person gets source energy from their own right hemisphere. Their left hemisphere goes to their own right. Your right is where you're connected to the collective consciousness of all humanity and all that other stuff. And so the narcissist is born without that connection. So they have to create an image to connect to someone else's right hemisphere. And the better the image tricks the other person and takes a beneficial dopamine hit, uses that person as a disposable cup to just take stuff from. The shame that they might feel wouldn't be shame that they hurt you. It'd be like, oh, I thought I built an image better than this, and my image didn't work, and now I'm disgruntled about all the work I put into this. Sort of like a piano player, like in the Muppets, like banging his head on the piano when the song didn't come out just the way he wanted. It's not the same as shame. So somebody out there was like, oh, a human actually understands one of those things actually sort of is describing what we are. Correct. And I have to be honest with you. So how does the gang stalking happen? Well, just like they go to their their secret little missions where they fly off in their astral spirit while their body appears to be sitting at their school desk. They're having secret meetings of their symbiotic little 20% Paretos usurper class and working on their gang stalking. They don't have to coordinate gang stalking. They don't have to coordinate gang stalking on the internet. No, they just do it instinctively. So like they know how to, Sam Watkins has said this too, that if a narcissist has been harassing you, another narcissist can sense where the other narcissist left off and can pick up on that place and weaken that spot for them or try to work on it themselves, or because they don't, they are on a team. So like where and why did I come into this? Because I woke up this morning as Elizabeth Salander, which is a code name for my pre-cult self. And Elizabeth Salander was sucked into a 30-something year reverse shadow in time, where she was forced into a persona and a person that she would have never been. That was contrary to everything about her. And then when she woke up, they tried to play it like it was some kind of miracle. Like, wasn't that the best thing you ever experienced? And it's like, you guys are ugly. Inside and out. Like, you're really fucking ugly. Everything you value is ugly. I looked into your minds. I had a very unfortunate experience. I'll tell you about it. I looked into the minds of abusers, and it started off as a child because my mom trafficked me under the age of 3. And one of the ways that people don't like to talk about this, but I'll tell you, one of the ways that children survive severe abuse like that is that they leave their body and they have to jump into the body of the abuser to force the abuser to finish their climax and finish their abuse really, really quickly and lose interest and wander away. So the reason why children get out of severe abuse and trafficking is for one reason. It's not because God answered a prayer. It's because they were willing to take over the body of their abuser and make their abuser think that they had finished the job and were no longer interested in wandering off. Which means that if you as a baby have to possess a grown human body and see inside of their ugly mind and see how they think and drive them off and get them to lose interest in you, it does something to you for the rest of your life, where you've seen something so ugly inside the human soul that you will never value the human race the way that other people do. If I like someone, it's despite you being human. It is never because of it. Being human gives you an automatic disadvantage for being liked. Because I was treated poorly by humans for the first 3 years of my life, and the only way I got out of it was by taking over the body of the abusers and having to see how they saw me and get them away from me. Do you know how traumatizing that is? If you're a baby between 1 month old and 3 months old, if you have to leave your body to jump in the bodies of men who are gang raping you in order to get them to lose control of their bodily functions and make them wander away so that they lose interest, you'll be okay. But the cost of it is what you've seen inside of their minds will make you never like the human race or the God of the human race ever again. If people who were non-abusive towards children could see how abusers saw children, they would be forced to either side with the abusers or to have them cold.